At the end of life, we wonder, what comes next? Many people claim to know exactly what comes next, ranging from nothing, you die, and that's it, end of story, to heaven and Jesus, oh, the glory, or hell. But the most honest answer to that question, what comes next? We don't know. What we do know about death is from the outside. Pretty grim. But can we learn what death is like from the inside? Some people have been clinically dead and yet revived. Many of those people have described what they experienced while apparently dead. They had what is called a near-death experience, NDE for short. Our ability to understand near-death experiences can be confused and obscured by interpretations or hallucinations or cultural influences or speculations or preconceived agendas, however well-intentioned. Fortunately, for the last 40 years, responsible scientists and scholars have studied near-death experiences, and careful research continues into such experiences, enabling us to understand near-death experiences more clearly and objectively. So, what is a near-death experience like? Studies have shown that each near-death experience is unique, and yet a number of common features appear frequently in near-death experiences, like feelings of peace and joy, a cessation of pain. A man said, "I wasn't frightened. In fact, I was very happy, very peaceful and in awe of the wonderful light around me. The light was so beautiful, brighter than the clearest sunshine and yet not dazzling. I have never seen such light before and never felt such peace." A sense of being outside of one's physical body. A surgeon recalled an experience he had as a 4-year-old. "I choked on a plastic toy, absolutely painful, and then I felt totally comfortable. I wasn't in my body anymore. I was up in the air, watching this kid dying on the bed." I remember the whole dialogue. I thought, well, my parents are going to find me dead. I feel bad. But I prefer being dead. This is a lot more interesting. A survivor of a brain aneurysm and surgery described being wakened by the sound of the cranial saw and being pulled out through the top of her head, where she observed the operation over the surgeon's shoulder. She saw details like the interchangeable saw blades in a socket wrench type case, the way her head was shaved. The surgeon acknowledged that her descriptions were accurate and said, "At that stage in the operation, nobody can observe or hear. I don't have an explanation for it. At the same time, I've seen so many things I can't explain. I don't want to be so arrogant as to be able to say there's no way it could happen." A woman said, "I found myself whizzing through this dark tunnel at great speed, and I could see a blinding bright light at the end of it." Naomi said, "The next thing I remember is the feeling of going down this tunnel. At first it was silent, but then there started to be the sound of ringing. Then there was a feeling of standing in an all-enveloping, very bright light. This was when the sound changed too, from that piercing ringing to this almost ethereal sound. And then I was drawn into the light, And when I came through, I was in this space where I felt really enveloped by the sense of peace and joy and being connected to everything. It was lovely being there. Pam said, I felt drawn toward a shower of light that seemed to pour out of a vortex, and I went toward it freely. I heard the voice of my long-dead grandmother and asked her if the light was God. Oh no, baby, grandmother said. God is not the light. The light is what happens when God breathes. I saw any number of relatives, and I felt somehow they were all looking after me. Phyllis said, and into this great peace there came my life parading past my view all at once, a reliving of every deed, thought, and word, plus the effect of every thought, word, and deed upon everyone and anyone who'd ever come within my sphere of influence, whether I actually knew them or not, plus the effect of my every thought, word, and deed upon the weather, the air, the soil, plants, animals, the water, everything else within the creation we call Earth and space. I never before realized that we were responsible and accountable for every single thing we did. It was judging me, not some heavenly St. Peter, and my judgment was critical and stern. There was a feeling of sadness and failure, yet a growing feeling of joy when the realization came that I'd always done something. I tried. This was satisfying. I was okay. And then I saw another realm, an ineffably beautiful world of lakes and wonderful gardens and flowers and jewels. And then I came to a kind of gateway. I tried to follow the light, but suddenly there were people there who told me it was not my time yet, and I had to go back. 9-year-old Aaron said, there were millions of people there. There was a reincarnating line, there was the staying line, and I was right there on the fighting line. I had to go back. It was spooky. I've been trying to block it out of my mind. Pam said, the light was so warm and desirable, and all I wanted was to move ever onward and leave all the mess behind. But grandmother intruded. What about your children? My relatives stood against me. I couldn't stay in the light with them. Go into that light and you will change, grandmother said. You will never be able to return to your body. And then, without warning, my uncle gave me a shove. I saw my bloodied body on the operating table, dead like a train wreck. It was like being thrown into a cold pool. Not all near-death experiences are peaceful and beautiful. Perhaps 20% of cases reported feelings of distress and confusion, of entering a featureless void of chaos and desolation. Very few, perhaps 1%, described anything like the Western image of hell. So, what difference does a near-death experience make in a person's life? Likely after effects are increased spirituality, concern for others, appreciation of life, sense of purpose, and this is less common, an increased capacity for perception, even paranormal perception, like sensing what others are thinking or feeling, or foreseeing events. After a near-death experience, a person will likely experience a decrease in fear of death, materialistic attitudes, and competitiveness. But most often, a person who has had a near-death experience doesn't know how to interpret it. She fears talking to anyone about it. She may even doubt her own sanity. She needs someone to listen without judgment, someone to help her understand. Now that you know even this little bit about near-death experiences, you could be that someone. Further, A person who has had a near-death experience can provide a wonderful support and insight to others who face death. And if we're honest, we have to admit that death is an ever-present possibility for every one of us. One 14-year-old who had experienced near death said, "Death's all right. I know I could die anytime, so I just live each day." I'd say to people who are dying, don't be afraid. It's a beautiful place. Well then, how do near-death experiences answer our question, what comes next? What conclusions can we draw? It's very tempting to jump to conclusions, either by affirming too much or by denying too much, perhaps because of a materialistic ideology with its telltale tags, only, this is due only to oxygen deprivation, or nothing but, this is nothing but a sharp spike in brain activity before unconsciousness. Or perhaps, on the other hand, because of a religious ideology. It's not what the Bible says, so it must be a trick of the devil. One conclusion, then, is, rather than jumping to conclusions, it's best to let near-death experiences speak for themselves. Accept the experience. Be politely leery of interpretations. So the most honest answer to our question, what comes next, is we don't know. But there are some very interesting possibilities.